afternoon. Today it's just a pleasure to have two incredible guests with us. We have the mayor of Rockville and Madam President-elect of the Maryland Municipal League, Bridget Newton, and my friend, the mayor of Cheverly, Mike Callahan. I served with both of them on the legislative committee of the Maryland Municipal League. And today we're going to discuss a very important issue for our membership, highway user revenue, something that has plagued the 156 members of our organization trying to restore this very valuable revenue stream. And I think that Mayor Newton and Mayor Callahan could shed light not just on this issue for our colleagues, but on residents. Why should they care about this? So Jerry and I are delighted to have you. And so first question, what is highway user revenue?
Would you like to take that one? Well, I'd be happy to take that. Highway user revenues are the money that the state allocates, but you really have to understand where the money comes from first. It's basically the gasoline tax. Every time you pump a gallon of gas, you pay tax to the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland takes that in and then distributes it supposedly by formula, okay, between the states, the counties, and the municipalities. And it's basically based on the miles of roads that you have in your community, as well as the number of registered vehicles. So the idea was that it would be distributed fairly, okay, in a prorated format across the state, the counties, and the municipalities.
And so how did we get into this situation where the municipalities are not getting their fair share of the gas tax or the highway user revenue that's supposed to be allocated to them? It's already in the code. These formulas already exist. So how did we get here?
So it happened during the recession, 2008, which was FY 2009. The state needed revenue to balance the budget, and the easiest, in my humble opinion, way was to raid the transportation fund. And in doing that, they stripped 96% of the monies that went to the municipalities and the counties in order to balance the state budget. And we have been working feverishly ever since to inch it back to full funding.
And one thing I want to stress to everyone watching, this is our money. Yeah. We're not asking for the state to give us new money. We're just asking for the state to give us the money that they've promised us that we are supposed to get, and before Governor O'Malley raided the fund that we got.
Right. And if I can just add one thing to what you said, because I think that's the key, is it's not even our money, it's our residents' money.
Right.
Okay. It's money that they paid at the gasoline pump for the purpose of making state roads better, for making county roads better, and making municipal roads better. And unfortunately, because of the gap since 2008, okay, our residents are not able to get their municipal roads and their county roads, okay, into the shape they should be because the money is not there.
And so what happens in Cheverly, for example, that you guys do not get the money that the state owes you, right?
Right.
What happens to your roads? How do you maintain those roads? Do you have to go to your residents and increase property taxes, or do you have to go out for bond funding for these improvements?
You know, so every community is obviously going to be different in the way Cheverly has handled this. And just real quickly, because I think our numbers reflect percentage-wise what everybody's numbers would be. If we had had full funding of the HURs during this period of time, we would have had $1.6 million to spend on roads, okay? Because of the way the formulas, the cuts have been made and the additions have been made, we only had $500,000, okay?
Oh, that's a huge difference.
It's an enormous difference. We've actually spent $1.3 million. Now, I want to be careful, we don't go to bonds, okay? So what we've had to do is raise our property tax. You'll find some communities that are unable to raise their property tax and unable to take care of their roads, and the roads are in really bad shape. We've been able to make some pretty tough decisions about what has to get done, okay? And in spite of the recession, okay, we have had to do these projects and spend this money, but that money does come out of the property tax of a resident. And because of that, a resident could actually feel like they've been taxed twice for the same road. They could feel like, well, geez, I paid for this at the pump, and now you are asking me to pay my property taxes. They get mad at me because my property tax is what they see, okay? The lack of highway user revenues is what they don't see because they don't see that in the budget.
Excellent point.
I think
Bridget?
it's very similar for the city of Rockville. We went from about 3.3 million at the high to between 200,000 and 300,000 at the low.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, big difference. And like Mike, we have been lucky not to have to raise the property tax to do it, but we've done shifting within our general fund in other ways. So as you were saying, there are things that we could be doing and should be doing with that money that we're bringing in that we're having to put towards roads. Now, one thing Rockville has done is we have stretched out our repavement from 10 to 12 years. Our roads are still in okay shape. We're very blessed in the city, but there are things road-wise that we would be doing, traffic and transportation-wise, that we would be doing with that funding if we had it. And we've been making some hard choices.
And so this deferred maintenance, do you think it's going to reach a public safety issue where if we don't make these investments, that residents could be injured, or their vehicles could be damaged because of the potholes or other issues in the roads or bridges?
So I think every single municipality is working very hard not to have it be a public safety issue, and we're taking strong measures to not have that. But I will say that the potholes, that's damage to cars every time you hit something where it hasn't been resurfaced. So that's a financial burden to residents in a different way. But public safety, I don't want to go quite that far.
Okay.
Jared, what do you think?
It's a great question. It's an absolutely great question. It's something that faces, obviously, us on a national level with bridges and that type of thing. I don't think we face it kind of at the micro level of roads and pavement and potholes and that type of thing. As Bridget said, we're doing everything in our powers to make sure that our roadways are safe. It's those hidden things, okay, that kind of go for some period of time, sometimes without being noticed, and that becomes structure of bridges. Right. Fortunately, we in Cheverly don't have one. We have a little tiny one. But those types of issues actually are gnawing at really big cities.
Yeah.
Okay. And,
May I ask a question? Jarrett referred to this as a promise from the state, but is it really a promise, or is it something that's written in law that the state by state law is obligated to pay the municipalities HUR funds for the roads in their town?
Well, it's absolutely in law, right? And if it wasn't in law, then the state would be responsible for paving our roads, right? If they didn't actually have this allocation of distributing money, okay, to our communities, then the natural thing to do was the state would have had to take care of these roads because they're collecting the gas tax, which is the money to repave our roads. And so not only is it in law, but we're actually taking a responsibility off of them, okay, to do this. So it's very frustrating to see this.
And to follow up on that, Jerry, I would say it's also a compact. It's a compact between the state and the municipalities on behalf of the citizens, because in the agreement that the state collects the funds and then is supposed to give them back, we municipalities don't have the right to add more taxes. So we don't have the right by state code to add a tax in to our residents to pay for that. That goes back to the conversation we were having about how we are shuffling money within the general fund to make sure we're keeping up with things. And it is the infrastructure repairs, and Mike alluded to it, it's the deferred maintenance is where it gets you. It costs more money to fix something big time than it does to maintain it along the way.
Right. So when you say we don't have the ability to tax people what you're on roads alone, what you mean is we don't have the authority to create a separate highway user tax that our residents would pay. Is that what you?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And and this has been a conversation. Some of the larger municipalities might actually say, hey, I'll charge an extra penny and do this. But when you start to talk about 57 municipalities, smaller ones might not have a gas station, right? They might have one gas station. And oh, by the way, there might be a gas station on this side of the street, okay, that sits inside of a municipality. On that side of the street, it's not. You add 3 cents in a gas tax here, your gas station is going to go out of business while the other one moves forward.
Right.
The way that people use gas, okay, is not on a local level, right? It's distributed across the state, and people use Cheverly roads who are outside of the state. People use Tacoma Parks roads that are from Frederick, right? It's just a natural way this should be done.
What do you see as to how this is going to get resolved, or what do we need to do to heighten the interest within the state legislature and amongst our own Montgomery County delegation to ensure there's some resolution comes, and it comes quickly? Because, as you said, 2008 was the year they took the money away, and I don't think that they're going to say, well, there's a difference between 2008 and 2018 of how much you should have gotten, we're going to give it to you. They're probably going to say, this is what you should get in 2018, and ignore the delta and say this is what you're going to get. But the bottom line is, how do you think what's the method to get this resolved?
Do you want to take it first, or you
Go
want
ahead.
me to? So I think probably the biggest issue has been it's hard to engage the population in this issue. Okay, as I said earlier, as Bridget said earlier, it's disguised in your municipal budget. Okay, your municipal budget is reduced because the state has taken funds away, right? And residents, they just don't wrap their heads around that fact that, maybe the reason you're increasing property taxes is because this isn't here. So the way I think we have to attack this, because we as Maryland Municipal League, we go to Annapolis, right? We make this case, we're face to face with people, they understand, nothing happens. This has to be residents in our communities making this case that you have shifted the burden for roads, okay, and you're making us pay twice, okay, for something I've already paid for once. And when the echo or the crescendo gets larger than just 157 municipality representatives in Annapolis, that's when a difference will be made. And so I'm heartened that you're doing this interview, that you're planning to distribute to your community, so that that message can get out clearer, okay, than it ever has been before.
Yes, I completely agree with Mike, and we need to take it one step further, and that is statewide conversation. This should be, now it's an election year, it should be a conversation to everyone who's running, is what do you think about HUR restoration, what are you going to do about it? And if the General Assembly and the leadership could get together and make it happen, this has got to be our year to do that. I think the other thing I want to point out is that it's the instability of the budget process for the municipalities, because if we don't know how much is coming in with the restoration, it's very hard for us up until the last minute to be able to finalize what else we can do, because you're waiting to know. Obviously, in all of our municipalities, we do what we have to do first, and the other things that we would like to do, you know, community centers, parks, those things that make our quality of life what it is, they come after the important infrastructure needs are met. And so by not knowing having the surety of the full restoration of the HUR funding, it makes it very difficult for us to come down to the wire with our budget process. So I agree with Mike. Thank you for getting this out there.
And I think, you know, part of the disconnect is we're not giving our residents a call to action.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's true.
We need them to make calls to the presidents of the Senate, to the Speaker of the House of Delegates, and demand that there's a vote, at least a vote, up or down, on restoring or repaying HUR funding. Because this is my third term, and every year, this has been a priority, not just for the league as a whole, but for the local MML chapter. And us municipal officials, we talk to our colleagues in the state delegation, and they all say, yes, we will help you, we support repaying restoration of HUR. But for whatever reason, it does not actually make it to the floor for a vote.
Right.
So I think this is the year that we have to go beyond our colleagues. We have to go to leadership. We have to go to the chairs of the committees that this legislation or the funding will actually be approved. And we have to go to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Delegates in demand, and have our residents demand by making phone calls, by sending emails, by making posts on social media that say that, you know, like you said, Mike, they're paying twice. Why am I paying my property taxes to fix my roads when I'm already paying to fix the roads by purchasing gas?
Correct.
Right? So I think that is the missing piece that we have not had for this issue.
Well, just to clarify, one thing is that we, as MML Legislative Committee and leadership, have gone to the leaders of the
Yes.
delegates, and
Right.
but it's a combined effort that has to happen.
Yes.
The governor needs to put it in his budget.
Right.
The leadership of the General Assembly needs to have it come before them for a vote, and we
Right.
need to get this done. But it is a call to action, and it has to be an election issue,
Right.
so that everybody understands the importance and they can't just let it go. Conversation has to go to a different level.
Yes. Jerry?
I have one question. Do you foresee with the slow increase, or maybe it's going to become more rapid in future years, of electric and hybrid cars, a problem with sustaining the level of funding for the roads? Because these cars, the hybrid cars, they won't use as much gas, and the electric cars won't use any gas. You know, as to how are we going to, in the future, get the funds that we need to maintain our roads?
So you nailed it. I don't think anything more than a yes is sufficient. Technology changes everything, everywhere, all the time. I know that's a ridiculous statement, but it just happens to be true. And certainly as the technology in the cars go, are the country's mechanism, okay, for feeding and fixing our highways is going to change dramatically, right? So at some level it's a savings to a resident, but there'll have to be some form of payment that people have to make to use roads, because if you don't, right, roads won't be there no matter what type of technology you're using for your car. So you nailed it. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I would agree we'll have to find funding in the future, but the problem is when you have a formula that's been in the law for X amount of decades, you can figure out how to feed the formula once, or feed the funding to do the formula. It's making,
Fair point.
right?
That's a
So
fair point.
I wouldn't let that tie us up, because we've got to get to the basics, which is the basic is there is a formula, let's get it paid, and then if we find out that the funding isn't coming because of the electric cars or more transit use, then we go back to the drawing board on the formula, but not taking it away from how we're getting our funding.
That's a very good point.
Oh, thank you.
I really like that.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
This is an extremely important issue for the entire membership of the Maryland Municipal League, and I hope this year that we can resolve it. So I want to thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you
your
very
leadership.
much. Thank you for having us, and
Yeah.
thanks for doing this.
And I want to thank everyone for watching today. After the show, you will find information to contact Governor Hogan, President Mike Miller of the Senate, and Speaker Mike Bush, so that you can let them know that they need to make sure that there's a vote this coming session for restoring highway user revenue. Thank you very much and have a good day.